Hello and welcome to the Nexus. Today we're looking at a president who boasts about personally killing people and sticks two fingers up at the West. It's the Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte, sometimes known as Duterte Harry. We're going to be looking at his war on drugs. Thousands of Filipinos have been killed by police since he came to power. Are they all drug dealers? We'll also be examining why he's such a rude operator, using foul language to describe the US president and even the Pope. And we're going to be finding out what he's doing to stop the terrible abuse of Filipino maids in the Gulf. All that and more here in the Nexus. Hello, I'm Matthew Moore, and today in the Nexus we're looking at one of the most controversial leaders on the planet, Rodrigo Duterte. We're going to be joined by Carlos Conde of Human Rights Watch, not Duterte's favourite NGO. He joins us from New York, but usually based in Manila. Phoebe Dimacali, she used to work as a maid. She suffered abuse at the hands of her employers and is now an advocate here in London. And finally, Bruce Rivera. He's a well-known blogger and lawyer who supports the president's agenda broadly. So now we're all gathered, let's examine Duterte's record, beginning with the war on drugs.
$5,927 deaths linked to Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs.
Drug dealers and addicts face death squads as part of a brutal crackdown on drugs in the country.
The president of the Philippines has just admitted that he used to personally kill suspected criminals.
Parang sa pelikula lang yan ni Batman, kung saan pinatawag ni Joker lahat ng masasamang loob sa Gotham City upang maghasik ng kadiliman.
In the Philippines, it is really an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Mahirap lang ho kami, hindi rin nila kami papakinggan. Pag ang mahirap, mamamatay.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. There is 3 million drug addicts. I'd be happy to slaughter them.
Please, if you're listening, please end the killings.
2 million per head. Dead or alive. Better dead.
The war on drugs does not work.
Ay isang mamamatay tao at sociopathic serial killer.
In Davao, I used to do it personally, just to show to the guys that if I can do it, why can't you?
You cannot kill addicts and declare the problem solved.
I will continue, and I don't give a about anybody disturbing my behavior.
This wave of extrajudicial killings may amount to crimes against humanity.
Badly thought out, ill-conceived drug policies foster a regime of impunity.
Do not destroy my country because I will kill you.
Well, it's easy to see why they call him Duterte Harry. Let's come to you first, Bruce Rivera. Are you proud of your president?
Yes, very proud. In fact, the approval rating in the Philippines has always been consistently high. 70 to 80% of the Filipinos approve of what he's doing. And to be honest with you, there seems to be a slanting of his of international perception on the president with that video showing alone. You know, clearly there are a lot of misconceptions.
Well, it's not a misconception when you look at the hard numbers, is it? I mean, you've got one senator saying that maybe 20,000 Filipinos have been killed since the president came to power in this war on drugs.
In all honesty, it's just, let me put it in perspective. In 2013, 16,000 people died of drug-related cases by drug addicts and even by the police on drug addicts. The international community never said anything. Now it's less, 10,000. They claim it's 10 to 12,000, and there is a problem. So for me personally, it is intentional killings have always been high in the Philippines.
Are you not concerned, Bruce, as a lawyer yourself, that many of these people are not getting their day in court and they are just being killed on the street, and what they call extrajudicial killings.
To be honest with you, we are 100 million Filipinos, and only if you look at it from the perspective of ratio, not all of them are killed. Some of them are rehabilitated. Some of them are given the day in court, but there are some who fight back. And I'm not actually saying that it's the police is all clean. It's just that it's part of the war on drugs. It's part of how we deal with it.
Okay, let's kick it over to the Human Rights Watch representative now, Carlos Conde. Well, you know, the country's got 100 million people in it. You can afford to kill a few thousand?
That's just absolutely an egregious remark to say that these people, these thousands of people, are nothing. So, but really, to come to your point earlier, Matt, these people, even if they're just 100, even if they're just 1,000, majority of them, all of them, did not undergo through what we call due process. And many of them are innocent until they're proven guilty. Most of them are innocent until they're proven guilty. And many of those who have been killed turn out to be non-drug users or non-drug peddlers. So really, without this due process, I struggle to accept the logic that it is all right.
Has drug crime gone down since Duterte came to power? Just on a factual basis.
You know, the police claims that it has gone down, although homicides, as you can imagine, have gone up. But really, that's actually beside the point, actually, in this debate. The point of all of this is that, you know, an anti-crime campaign cannot be done by killing people, by basically just disregarding the rule of law, by disregarding due process. We're talking about institutions that are being damaged and people's lives that are being snuffed out.
Let me come back to you, Bruce. It was mentioned, wasn't it, by Carlos Conde there about due process. Okay, justice takes time. Why can't the Philippines spend that time and money on their citizens?
In all honesty, can I just answer his question? Because in the first place, there are so many drug convictions and drug trials in the Philippines, to be honest with you. And it's wrong to say that most of those who are killed are non-drug users, because technically you cannot, first of all, the killings, most of them are because these people have fought back. And drugs have been taken within their bodies. Many of them were drug peddlers. And for me, it's unfair to actually say that most of them are non-drug users, because if you lived in the Philippines like I did, in the middle of the drug scourge, we know that meth is a very prevalent problem in the Philippines, and most of those killed are either killed by people who know of their complicity in the crime. Number one. Number two, the police by themselves are parcel to the problem because they're also in the drug trade.
Okay,
so
let's bring Phoebe Dimacali into the conversation. Now, Phoebe, I know this isn't your area of expertise, but I know that you go back to the Philippines regularly and you have a lot of contacts there. What is the atmosphere like now in Manila?
Well, I don't actually believe what they're saying, that we need to kill the drug addicts and the pushers. What the government need to do is stop, you know, the drug lords. They have to chase the drug lords, not the users. And before anything else, the government must have a proper plan for those drug addicts who surrendered. What they will do with the drug addicts? What they will do with this? With the drug addicts, they said that it's 3 million people. So it should be a proper plan. Killing is not the answer.
Okay. Phoebe, we want to talk about some of the protests that have been happening recently around Manila. We've got some pictures of that here. You know, Bruce, I mean, there's a fairly substantial protests against the drug war. Do you think that Duterte's popularity rating is suffering because of this?
No, because if you look at the protests, there are just a few number of people, and what media or what the mainstream media failed to tell us is that there are also protests for Duterte, which is much larger and much more people are attending.
Well, let's take a look at the numbers. I hope they don't lie. Let's take a look at his approval rating. We've got here something like 66%. Back in June 2016, then it started to dip a bit to 48%, and now it's creeping back up again. So we have seen it. We have seen a bit of a dip, and then of course he changed the war on drugs. He actually stopped the majority of police being involved in it. So it's scaled back quite a lot now. Yeah.
The latest in the Philippines is that he has an approval rating of 75%. That's the latest. So his approval rating
is that a reliable survey?
Yes, that's social weather stations (SWS), and that dip was because of Kian de los Santos, that the boy who was allegedly killed because of drug connections, the 17-year-old boy, and that was the reason for that. But after that, it grew up again, and it's now at 75% consistently.
Okay.
So
let's take a look at another part of the domestic record. Looking at the economy, crime generally. Let's have a look. So GDP has been pretty static, growing strongly at around 6.8, up to 7% there. We're going to move on to the crime rate. Let's take a look at that. There we go. Crime is down considerably, but homicide rate is up sharply. I mean, probably the war on drugs. And then finally, let's get into the corruption. Now here, the record's not so good. The Philippines has been slipping down the Transparency International rankings. I guess, Conde, you'd expect that.
Well, yeah, in some sense, but really, when I mean, his popularity and all these good things that are happening, not surprising. We expect the popularity to be consistent, but these are beside the point. Actually, from a human rights perspective, the point is that this government has responsibilities to the Filipinos, to the international community, to uphold its commitment to human rights and due process and rule of law. And that has been violated whole scale across the Philippines since Duterte came to power, which is why we at the Human Rights Watch and many other groups are actually demanding that Duterte allow the United Nations to do its job in investigating these killings in the Philippines. And that's the only way we can really, ascertain how extensive this drug war has become and how fatal this has been to the lives of many Filipinos.
Phoebe, the economy is said to be growing very rapidly. One of the best performers actually now, obviously from a very low base. But do ordinary Filipinos that you know, are they feeling it? Are they feeling the benefits?
They always say that the economy is growing fast. But do we see any proof? Why do people tend to go abroad if there is job in the Philippines? Why is life still hard? Why is the poverty rate is still growing up? So we don't see any progress in economy. We don't see any progress in economy because Filipinos do tend, they know that life abroad is not easy. They know that they will risk their lives. But there is no progress in the Philippines. We couldn't afford to feed our family in the Philippines. There's no work there.
Okay. Phoebe, thank you for that. Well, that's the record at home. Let's see how he handles diplomacy now. The Philippines has traditionally been a friend to America and the West and suspicious of China. But Duterte has turned things upside down, proving at times to be a rude operator.
Those were the days when a Filipino president could really throw a party for a US president, turning a blind eye to all the corruption. But now it's all a bit difficult.
We do want to start by warning everyone the language from the Philippine leader is graphic.
You idiots. You bullshit. You're a son of a Don't with us. The Republic of the Philippines has a president with a foul mouth. Correct. You can go to hell. Mr. Obama, you can go to hell.
Well, that's what you get for pestering Duterte about human rights.
Clearly, he's a colorful guy.
Maybe Duterte's still angry about the Philippines being a US colony for half a century.
I am a president of a sovereign state. We have long ceased to be a colony.
Well, at least he has a friend in Russia, which recently donated 5,000 Kalashnikovs.
When Russia sells the arms, we sell the arms. You need it, or I will give it to you. You do not attach conditions.
But he saves his warmest remarks for his new best buddy, China.
Our conflict with China is not really, it's more of an imaginary thing. President Xi Jinping is really a great guy.
A state visit to China. He's also been to Russia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, even Peru, but no visits to any European country or the United States. As for the United Nations...
United Nations, if you can say one bad thing about me, I can give you 10. Repercussions, I don't give a When you bomb Syria and Iraq, anybody in that stupid body complaining about...
Duterte is also angry with the EU.
Why are you trying to impose on us? Why don't you mind your own business? Why do you have to, with us, goddammit? Why am I saying this, the height of vulgarity? You started it.
Well, there we go. Unconventional, to say the least. Let's go back to Carlos Conde now. Carlos, you are clearly in New York. You're usually based in Manila, and you're representing an international organization. You must meet a lot of people. Do they? What do they say about your leader?
When you talk to the ordinary Filipinos, there's no doubt that a lot of them, most of them, like him. That he is this very colorful personality, and the thing is, Duterte knows that, and he knows, he knows the pulse of Filipinos. He knows what makes click, what makes Filipinos click. He knows, the right kind of joke to make them, laugh and then like him. So he's giving them what they think they like, and so that actually colors all of this, diplomacy and to some degree policy. And again, back to your question, there's no doubt that a lot of Filipinos like him, but that's not an excuse for all this madness, or all these killings. I mean, among the Filipino community, he is in other countries, he's a very popular and well-loved, charismatic figure. But among our interlocutors in the civil society community, he's seen as this madman that is wreaking havoc on the Philippines. But also, it's a mixed kind of perspective, a view of Duterte, and obviously a lot of that has to do with the killings back home, and then also to the idea that this is an unconventional president, as you put it. He has said things and done things that no president in the Philippines has ever done before, so that makes him a bit of he's a breath of fresh air in all of this. So it's a mix. They like him, but at the same time, they're quite wary, they're quite concerned about what's happening in terms of the killings.
Bruce, why do you think he's shifted so much over towards China and perhaps Russia in their favor rather than the United States?
To be honest with you, the president always felt that we had the short end of the stick when we are treated by the United States. We are a very good geographical position to be in the prime of U.S. favors, but we are not. And President Duterte realizes that in order for us to actually have an independent foreign policy, it is good to befriend people which are not usually our allies. So, but Duterte has always have given a more pragmatic approach to China, but he's ready to pounce at China anytime.
The thing is, Bruce, the Philippines has a bit of a conflict with China over the South China Sea. We'll just show you a quick graphic here. And, the Chinese are claiming a vast area, which includes some of the areas claimed by the Philippines. Now, when the Philippines won the UN tribunal over part of that, why is it Duterte is backing away from capitalizing on that?
It is wrong to say that the Duterte is backing away, because basically, if you look at the ruling in the UNCLOS, our victory pertained precisely merely to maritime rights. It did not talk clearly on the land areas or on the islands per se, because that was the ruling. Duterte never said that he is abandoning it. He simply is trying to make it more diplomatic, because let's face it, China is powerful. We cannot just fight them head on. But of course, if it needs to be, he pounces. And
so he's being pragmatic. Okay, fair enough.
But Bruce.
Come in, Phoebe.
Yeah. We are not fighting with any other country. But what is for the Philippines is for the Filipino people. According to the Constitution, the Sprat list is for the Filipino people. The economic zone is for the Filipino people. It should be reserved for us. So why did Duterte gave it, have the joint ownership with China? This is for the Filipino people.
It was never a joint ownership, madam. There was never a joint ownership. In fact, recently, Duterte even chided the ambassador of China and say, okay, if you want to claim, oh, why don't you make the Philippines just a province of China?
That's not totally true. That's not totally true.
No, that you are saying something that is a generalization, because presently we live here on the ground. We know the situation here. We know that if we fight with China, we will all be Jesus. But at the end of the day, we have to look at our best interests. And Duterte has never said that we are giving up on our rights on China, on our rights on the practice.
Okay, just a quick response. Just a quick response from Phoebe.
I do not believe that Duterte is looking after his people. He has been contacting, he has been engaged with other countries and selling our people. He has been, the money that China gave, the aid that we receive, it's a debt, and the people will pay for it.
Phoebe, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on. Duterte may have his critics, but he has been widely applauded for trying to stop the abuse of Filipino maids working abroad, particularly in the Gulf. Now, he took action after a maid's body was found in a freezer in Kuwait. Now, while that's an extreme case, it's fair to say many Filipino maids in the Gulf have it tough.
For Filipinos struggling to find a job to support their family, ads to work in the Gulf may look tempting, at first sight at least, exciting opportunities to make money while experiencing a new culture. The region has some of the richest economies on earth. The average salary in Qatar is the highest in the world, a whopping $11,500 a month. Well, those are the headlines perhaps, but Filipinos have to watch out for the small print. In many cases, they can barely expect to earn $200 a month, cooking, cleaning, and looking after children. They usually have their passports confiscated on the day they arrive, and they have to work long hours. Some maids are working up to 21 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You can sleep only 4 to 5 hours a day without day off, you cannot choose the phone.
In some cases, they're confined to their employer's home, which are usually pretty big, yet maids get put in the smallest room in the house and may not even be guaranteed a window. Not all, but some employers will restrict their access to the phone, internet, and even the outside world.
Ayoko na umuwi. Ayoko na. Natawa na ako.
And worse still, there are many cases of verbal and physical abuse that often go unreported.
What have we done to you to deserve this kind of treatment for my countrymen?
And one more thing to note, even quitting is not necessarily an option unless the employer allows them to do so. Same with leaving the country. Trying to leave without permission could land them in jail.
Well, President Duterte is offering Filipino maids a free flight home from Kuwait if they want. Phoebe, if I can come back to you, how many people have now taken up this offer?
It says in the news, Matthew, that 900 people has been repatriated to the Philippines, and there are more 10,000 waiting for repatriation. And the problem here is, what will these 900 people will do in the Philippines? Is there any job opportunities for them so that they won't need to go abroad to find a living, so that they could be able to feed their families?
Are you impressed by his standing up to the Gulf?
Yeah, but it is ironic how Duterte stands up for these domestic workers abroad. Telling the Kuwaiti people to treat the Filipinos nicely, but back home, the people that has been in the Philippines has been killed. The people, there is no enough wages. They are not even the wages for the factory workers. They didn't even receive the maximum wage, the minimum wage. So
Bruce,
how could you say?
Bruce, it is important if you're flying people back home that you give them some alternative. Is there an alternative at home?
Yes, can I make a comment? Because of course, when you say that if you ask them to return home and have them killed, that's unfair. Because, you know, the president has always stood up for the OFWs. He knows that the OFWs are the ones
overseas
who
workers.
There are
overseas foreign workers. Clear.
Okay,
if you don't let
but
the
when they're coming
president-
back, Bruce, do they have an alternative, or are they just going to have to go back to the Gulf?
Basically, the policy of the president is make the Philippines better so that nobody leaves. That is what we want. We know that the people are our greatest resource. But if our people are being killed outside of the Philippines, they are being abused, raped. So what's the point? The problem is we have the president has a political will to take them all back to the Philippines. And yes, we will find a way to give them jobs here.
Okay, Bruce, well, an optimistic point to end on. That's Bruce Rivera, and we also had Phoebe Dimacali and Carlos Conde. I'm afraid the time has flown by. Well, thank you all for your contributions to the Nexus. And that is it for now. Next week, are things changing in America? We're going to be looking at the world's most famous, or infamous, gun lobbyist. See you then. Thank you for watching.